Bring in Mike Davis, president and founder of Article 3 Project, and Julian Epstein, attorney and former House Judiciary Counsel. Good to see you both, gentlemen. So, Mike, it appears when you look at the ruling of Judge Chutkan and the ruling of Judge John Bates that they are both kind of skeptical of these claims for different reasons by the states against the president. And it just seems so logical. The president, to put it in business terms, the president was hired by the American people to run the executive branch of government, and yet he can't get into the records of the executive branch of government or have his people do so. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense. And you saw some of these earlier ex parte TROs by some of these activist judges receive tremendous political blowback because, like you said, the American people heard that President Trump wanted to implement DOGE with Elon Musk as he was running for office. They like what they heard, and they voted to put President Trump in office in an overwhelming fashion on November 5th. 312 electoral votes, all 7 swing states, and President Trump is doing exactly what he told the American people he would do, and this is exactly within his Article 2 executive power.
He telegraphed it. It's within his executive power. And, Julian, a lot of people, you know, Andy McCarthy hasn't always been on Donald Trump's side, but here's what he had to say earlier about these various attempts to challenge his authority here. Roll tape.
You're noticing this in all of these cases across the board is, well, it's only for 2 weeks. Well, it's only for 3 weeks. We'll just have the injunction in place in a little while, and then we can argue about it. It's important to recognize that he has this power, and the Congress and the courts do not have the ability to obstruct him, not for 14 days or even 14 seconds.
Julian, you're not a hard-nosed conservative. You're a Democrat. You've been served in Democratic administration. I mean, the bottom line is that American people look at this and they see the same kind of, I would call it lawfare, even though it's a different use of lawfare, but twisting the law in order to get what they want and deprive the American people of what they voted for.
Well, Democrats have the right to go into court. It doesn't mean it's a good fight. It doesn't mean it's a good fight. And what Democrats are doing is they're walking into a trap here. This Supreme Court has made it very clear its view that the president has the right to manage the executive branch under Article 2. And while the courts may clip President Trump a little bit on whether lower-level civil service employees have certain rights before they're terminated or whether earmarked funding can't be rescinded, for the most part, President Trump is going to win on these cases, particularly as they get up to the Supreme Court. And I think the lower courts were resisting the temporary restraining orders because they know the Supreme Court has that view and they don't want to be overturned. So this is like the legal result likely to come from this is that the president's hand will be further strengthened when it gets to the Supreme Court. As a political matter, this is like sheep hurtling off a cliff. We are living in an age of deep, but by the Democrats, I'm saying, that we are living in an age of deep skepticism of institutions. And what Democrats are doing politically right now is they are defending the most unpopular type of spending, foreign aid, particularly when we have examples of things like transgender operas and monies going to groups aligned with Hamas. This is a fight politically that the Democrats can't win. So I think both on the legal front and on the political front, Democrats are walking into a trap here, and they just don't seem to be able to see it.
And Mike, I mean, the examples that Elon and DOGE and independents like the EPA now is finding out of $20 billion in a slush fund, they're so obviously wrong. I mean, AID can be debated. I think it's generally done more harm than good in the world, but that's my own opinion based on what I saw covering Latin America. But the stuff that they're coming out with is just horrible, and Democrats are left in the position of having to support the horrible stuff that they've found.
And it's even worse. They're saying the President of the United States and his Treasury Secretary cannot look at payments from the Treasury. They can't look at whether there is waste, fraud, and abuse. That is clearly unconstitutional, a clear violation of Article 2 of the Constitution.
And Julian, you know, it's not just DOGE and the AID funding, et cetera. There's a whole range of issues. Immigration is among them that the president not only won on in November, but is getting a growing sense of support on from the American public. Jonathan Karl had Hakeem Jeffries on one of the Sunday programs. I just want to play a clip of that where he outlines how ridiculous it is to try to be against something that American people are more and more in favor of. Roll tape.
63% favor federal government's recognition of only two sexes. 60% favor deporting immigrants who entered the United States illegally. 60% favor expanding oil and gas production. 59% favor declaring an emergency at the southern border. Is there anything you are seeing that Trump is doing that you are in favor of, that you think is the right thing?
Let me say, as it relates to all of those issues, we're just at the beginning.
And his answer is no. I mean, I don't see anything that the leadership, I mean, there are people like Senator Fetterman and you and some Doug Schoen and some others who are saying you got to find something to work with them on. I don't see the leadership doing that. Do you?
No. And David, you and I talked about this repeatedly, including during the campaign when I said I thought Kamala Harris would lose, because the Democratic Party has been hijacked by the progressive left groups, and they are out of step with the American voters on just about every single issue by double digits. You just go back to DOGE for a second. Look at the Department of Education, $280 billion as our test scores plummet.
Yeah.
$50 million from the EPA for things like environmental justice groups that are affiliated or aligned with Hamas. I mean, you go down the list on this thing, and the Democrats just won't win the debate. You know, there is a word that Democrats should heed, and it goes back to the Clinton era, which is mend it, don't end it. Work with the Trump administration to try and fix these problems of abuse rather than trying to fight them. The best thing that could come out of this would be to put some sunshine onto these type of grants that have been going out from aid and EPA and all these others, because none of them would pass public muster if they really had, if the press were able, at least the independent press were able to get hold of them. And so I just think Democrats have chosen the wrong fight here, and they're going to lose.
Mike, I want to get this in quickly because we're running out of time, but the DOJ decided to drop the case against Mayor Adams in New York. Some people say it was all political, but then a lot of Republicans who say it was all political to indict him on these charges because it happened right after he went against the Biden administration on migration policies. What are your thoughts about that? Is it a fair thing that DOJ is now doing in dropping that case against Adams?
Absolutely. The Biden Justice Department went after New York City Mayor Eric Adams because he opposed Biden on immigration. And these career officials, these career prosecutors in SDNY got a civics lesson. They work for the Deputy Attorney General, who works for the Attorney General, who works for the President.
Yeah. All right. We got to leave it at that, gentlemen. Julian, Mike, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.